Oh hello and good evening, welcome to another Tabletop Impulse video. Today we're going to be running down the new, not yet released, but from the information that's out there on the web, the rundown for the new Bespoke Necron team coming to Kill Team on Saturday, the Hireotek Circle. So, let's get started. Really excited for this team. Love Necrons, think they're great. My very first army, back in the days of 2nd edition, was Metal Necrons, so I really love these guys. Hireotek Circle, so archetypes, security and recon. You'd be taking security with these guys. I think they're kind of slow, they're kind of defendy, they really suit security. I think they got a lot of synergy with security. The basic makeup of the team, you take a cryptek. You take a cryptek, and your cryptek can be either a cryptic chronomancer, a cryptic pyromancer, or a cryptic technomancer. I think the technomancer is actually the default pick. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's the best pick, but I think he's definitely, like, they've put him in the box. He's the one you get with the team when you buy the box game, and he's definitely the one you want to play in your first game. That's what I'm going to say. He's definitely the one I want to play in my first game. So unless you really want to, because you love the models and you want the excuse, you don't need to rush out and buy yourself a Psychomancer or a Technomancer. Okay? And then you've got your Plasmacyte Accelerator and your Plasmacyte Reanimator. No choices there. Those little droney things, you have to take them. So you take both of those. And then you've got 5 slots left, right? 5 slots left. And if you bought the box, you've got 5 more miniatures. These are your Immortal / Deathmark sprue plus upgrade pieces, right? So what you really probably want to do, just to run through it, you're going to be using the Apprentice, right? So you're going to be using the Apprentice. You're going to be using the Immortal Bespoke. Now he can be armed with a Ghost Blaster and a Tesla Carbine. Both weapons are good. There are situations when you want one. There are situations when you want the other. If you're building the box, and that's all you have, build him with a Tesla Carbine for reasons that I will explain later. Okay? And then you've got 3 slots left. If you've just got the box, I would probably go for 1 Deathmark, and then 2 more Immortals with Tesla Carbines. That's my pick. Now, this is a team that will very much benefit from a second box, right? If you build those things and you get a second box and you get 4 more, and then you build, I would say, at least 3 guys with Ghost Blasters, right? And another guy with a Tesla Carbine, so that you can have 3 of each of those and 1 Deathmark, and you can build a second Deathmark if you want, right, to have 2 Deathmarks in case you want it. I don't think you ever really want more than 1 Deathmark. I can't see you wanting 3 Deathmarks, so you don't need to worry about buying another box. But I think you definitely want on your roster at least 3 Immortals with Ghost with Tesla, 3 Immortals with the Ghost things, 1 Deathmark, and then the 2 specialists, and then we'll talk about the specialist with the other weapon in a minute, okay? Right, it'll make more sense when we get through it, I promise, alright? But if you're building a box, for those 5 Necrons, my picks are a Deathmark, an Apprentice, 2 Immortals with Tesla, and the Immortal Bespoke also with Tesla. That's what I would do for a starting list, right? But I'll explain more as we go on. So we're going to look at the abilities first of all. Living Metal, first of all, is basically unchanged from the compendium. In the ready operative step of the initiative phase, all your operatives gain 2 lost wounds. Except the Plasmacytes, the little drones, they only gain 1. So if your opponent is trying to kill you, chip damage doesn't really work against Necrons. You need to kill whole Necrons outright, otherwise they will start to grow back their wounds. Fine. Right, reanimation protocols is a lot of text. Right, so certain rules allow friendly Hireotek Circle operatives to attempt reanimation. So a couple of sources. Glass was saying it wrong initially. Crit was saying it wrong initially. Like there's a wrong idea floating around the web from these big content creators. Your Necrons do not reanimate by default. There is no reanimation phase where all your dead Necrons can test to come back up like it used to be in 40k. You need to have one of these, what they call certain rules. Okay, so you need to have access to a certain rule. There are 3 sources of this reanimation, one of which is reanimation beam, okay, but there are 3 sources of those certain rules, one of which is reanimation beam, and I'm going to point those out as we go through the list because I think they're very important. The first time a friendly Hireotek operative is incapacitated, so again that's the other little key bit, each operative can only be resurrected one time. All the different sources state the first time, so again you have to find a way of tracking that works for you. They need to have the source of resurrection from somewhere. It's only the first time that it's been killed that it can resurrect at all. If it attempts reanimation before removing the operative from the kill zone, place one of your reanimation tokens underneath the operative as close as possible to the centre of its base and leave its order token next to it. Note that the second time a friendly Hireotek circle operative is incapacitated, it cannot attempt reanimation. Then, in the ready operative step of each turning point, after resolving the living metal ability, which hurts because you don't get to get your extra wounds back in living metal, after resolving the living metal ability, roll 1d6 for each of your reanimation tokens. On a 1 to 2, leave it in the kill zone. On a 3+, the operative is successfully reanimated. Set up the operative the reanimation token was placed for as close as possible to the reanimation token, not within engagement range of enemy operatives. With D3 wounds remaining, it has the order of its remaining order token. Remove the reanimation token. Right, let me try and sum that up in slightly easier prose. Okay, when something dies, if you have a rule that allows it to attempt reanimation, it can do. There are 3 sources of that, which we'll get into. If so, place a token down when the operative is removed. Okay, you place a token down when the operative is removed, and then after you resolve living metal each turn, you can roll a d6 for each token, and on a 3 it comes back with d3 wounds on the same order as when it died, and each operative can only be resurrected once. I hope that makes sense. So, next, yes. Sorry, slight cut there. So first we're going to come on to the Chronomancer. So he's our first crypt deck option. Now he does have Fly, which I've cut off the screenshot because I'm awful. The Chronomancer is our first crypt deck, so I guess we're going to have to go through all the crypt deck stuff. Move 3, 3 APL, GA1, Def 3, 3 up save, 11 wounds. He benefits, as everyone in the team does, from the living metal special rule. Now, common to all crypt deck, he has the following things. So, Magnification Conduit. Each time its operative makes shooting attack, if a friendly Apprentek operative has an engage order and is visible to this operative in the select valid target step of that shooting attack, you can treat that friendly Apprentek operative as the active operative for the purposes of determining line of sight. If you do, in the roll attack dice step of the shooting attack, you can re-roll any and all of your attack dice results of 1 result, e.g. results of 2. So this means that you basically always, because if you look, he's got pretty strong weapons, in line with all the crypt decks, pretty strong weapons, but the BS of 4+. You really, if you can, always want to be shooting through your Apprentek to benefit from that buff to your accuracy. It doesn't have a cost to it. It just means that you have to be thinking about your order of activations, because you'd be shooting from your Apprentek in your Chronomancer's activation or in your Crypt Deck's activation, and then you'd be shooting from your Crypt Deck in your Apprentek, because they have the Apprentek has the reverse, so you'd be shooting from your Crypt Deck in the Apprentek's activation. So does that mean that you want to move your Apprentek first to get him into position? Like, it is going to take a little bit of thinking around corners to get your head around this one. It might be very difficult for people at first. It's certainly going to be difficult for me at first. And then we've got Crypt Deck. Well, we'll do this first. So, Command, all the Crypt Decks have this. So, for 1 AP, One friendly Deathmark or Immortal operative visible and within red of either this operative or a friendly Immortal Bespoke operative. So that's another specialist you have. You can select your friendly operative can immediately perform a free fight, overwatch, or a 1 AP pickup or 1 AP mission action. So you can spend one of your AP to get an overwatch or a fight or a pickup somewhere else on the board, as long as you can within red or your Bespoke is within red. Now, I believe the Bespoke himself, right, is always going to be an Immortal operative visible to and within red of the Immortal Bespoke operative. So in reality, what you can do here is you can pay 1 AP to, if you want to look at it that way, to have a free Overwatch shot with your Immortal Bespoke, which is often going to be worth doing. And now cryptic actions. So cryptic actions are very strange. Let's go through them. Cryptic actions are unique actions this operative can perform. When this operative is added to your roster or data slate, it gains 2 cryptic actions. So you have to, if you go into a tournament, you have to put the 2 of these that you want on your roster. You could roster multiple Chronomancers, but there are 3 kinds of cryptic, and your roster is going to be too small for you to roster absolutely everything that you could possibly want. Okay? So you've got to pick 2, and then you can have them. You can't use the same one more than once. You can't perform the one that you don't have. Okay, so you gain 2 out of these 3 special actions. It's your choice. All the things I've just mentioned are common to all 3 of the cryptics. Now we're going to talk about what makes the Chronomancer the Chronomancer. So first, the Chronomancer has a weapon choice. You can have an Aeon Stave or an Entropic Lance. Got a shooting profile and a combat profile. I much prefer the Entropic Lance. Some people are going to say the Aeon Stave is pretty good with its sort of lethal 5-up and its stun, because you're going to stun people, and lots of people like stun. It's got blast, and it rolls 5 dice. But I like the Entropic Lance. Mortal Wounds 3 is pretty cool. It means you're getting, on a crit, you're getting 6 damage, AP 1. That's pretty nice, and it got the big 6 damage in melee as well. I don't believe Cryptek should really be in melee, generally, but if they are, at least it's got a decent weapon. So I will probably be assembling my Chronomancer with the Entropic Lance once I can work out which part that is. But honestly, I don't think anyone's going to hold you for, like, the Chronomancer does come with 2 different staffs. I don't think anyone is going to hold you to WYSIWYG over like which Chronomancer staff that they have. So I don't think you need to buy 2 Chronomancers, but if you're obsessive enough, you will do. And no amount of me telling you don't need to will put you off that idea. So let's look at his 3 cryptic actions. Time Splinter. Cryptic action. Select one friendly Hireotek circle operative visible to, and I'm just going to take a little sip, I'm sorry, of my Dark Coke here. Time Splinter. Cryptic action. Select one friendly Hireotek circle operative visible to and within red of this operative until the end of the turning point. That operative has an invulnerable save equal to its modified save characteristic. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that you have to be quite clairvoyant to know exactly the right time to use it and on which of your operatives. And I think it is the skippable one of these 3. If you're taking a Chronomancer, Time Splinter is the one I wouldn't bother with. Counter-temporal nanomine. This is pretty cool. So you place one of your counter-temporal nanomine... I like the way it says, place one of your counter-temporal nanomine tokens, as if you just got some counter-temporal nanomine tokens, but there we go. Within red of the operative, each time an enemy operative performs an action where it moves, if it would move within red of the token, subtract circle from the distance it can move during that action. At the start of the next turning point, remove the token. So this is really good disruptive play. You know, you could rush up, and we'll look at his next ability down here, which is very much a letting you rush up ability. Kind of rush up, lob this towards your enemy, and just generally really disrupt their turn 1, which would be like a big flaw I have when I play war games is I think quite carefully at what I'm going to do, and then my opponent does stuff, and it's confusing, and it throws wrenches in my plan, and I'm pretty sure the reason that Zimbad always wins when we play is that he actually thinks about what I'm going to do and how he can stop me from doing what I'm going to do, whereas I'm still down here thinking about what I'm going to do and how I need to make that work. So this is one of those abilities that I think Zimbad would love, where you're not so much accomplishing your goals, killing the enemy, capturing objectives, accomplishing secondaries, but you are just stopping them from doing their thing, frustrating them, wrong-footing them, causing them to misplay, because now, oh yeah, all you guys got a circle, less movement, great. You've scuppered, because they were sitting there kind of going, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go bring this guy around here, and then there's a counter-temporal nanomine in the middle of their deployment zone, which kind of sucks. And then Chronometron, the thing that makes it possible for him to deliver that, Cryptic action, select one friendly Hireotek circle operative. So it doesn't have to be cast on himself. I just kind of imagine that you would. Visible to him within red until the end of the turning point. Add blue to its movement characteristic. Each time it would lose a wound, roll a d6 on a 5 up, the wound is not lost. So it gains an extra blue of movement. So you could cast this one on yourself. You could perform. You'd have to get your extra AP. They've got a ploy to get them an extra AP. Okay, but you could cast this. Move, dash, throw your nanomine, upset your opponent. Would it win you the game? Probably not. Would you probably die afterwards? Probably. But it might be quite fun to try that out and see how that goes. Yeah. So I quite like the Chronomancer. Although, to be fair, honestly, when it comes right down to it, I think he's probably the weakest of the 3 Cryptex. I think they've all got play. But I think he's probably the weakest of the 3 Cryptex. I know that people are saying, oh, just his Chronometron and his movement ability, just to go and get an objective, and getting objectives is really important. But when you look at what the other Cryptex bring, I think the Chronomancer is probably the weakest. The Psychomancer, I quite like the Psychomancer. So the Psychomancer has again, we're just going to look at the weapons and the Cryptic actions, because everything else now is the same. Abyssal Lance, 5 dice, hitting on 4s, although remember, if you shoot it through your Apprentec, you're re-rolling any one set of misses of one number, which is pretty good. 2/2 damage, AP2, blast circle, splash 1. Like, this is actually quite good. You're probably going to kill. Because remember, you can read splash 1 as mortal wounds 1 as well. So, especially if you're in the dark and you gain lethal 5+ because you've got blast. Suddenly that's a really ridiculous weapon. And then of course you've got the old blast and the splash thing going down, so you're gonna shred hordes. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good against 7 wound teams, certainly. Your Abyssal Lance with Reap 3 is interesting, but again, I don't really... Although if any of them's going to get into combat, honestly, it's going to be the Psychomancer, right? Because he wants to, tangle a little bit. So Psychomancer has these 3 abilities. Conjure Trauma. You select one enemy operative visible to the operative. Until the end of the turning point, the operative is treated as being injured, regardless of any rules that say it cannot be injured. This could be good against like intercessors where they've only got 6 guys and you go, okay, well, one of them's injured. But I think his lances, his weapons want you to pick him when you're playing against 10-man teams, big teams. And I think this just has counter synergy to his weapon. I think it's probably, again, it's funny, on basically all of them, I think that first ability is the one that you skip. On all 3 Cryptex, which is very funny, but the first ability is the one that you skip, I think. So Conjure Trauma, if I'm wrong, let me know that I'm wrong in the comments. Nightmare Shroud. Until the end of the turning point, each time an enemy operative within red of this operative fights in combat or makes a shooting attack, in the roll attack dice step of the combat or shooting attack, your opponent cannot re-roll their attack dice and cannot retain attack dice as critical hits. Must be retained as normal hits instead. I love this ability. It's amazing. It means that you're pushing your Psychomancer up the field to be within red. Or you could be doing it on your Apprentec as well, I suppose. But you're pushing him up the field and you're making your opponent much less... much less able to do the things they want to do. This is really going to mess with teams like, I'm thinking about teams Zimbad loves especially. He loved his Grey Knights. Well, Grey Knights without re-rolling their attack dice are just, like, awful. Awful. And then he's got the Intercessors he's liking now with the ability to kind of get extra crit, where you can never retain a dice as a crit. So, I think those are pretty good. Against those kind of elite teams. Yeah, I'm liking Nightmare Shroud. That's pretty cool. And then Harbinger of Despair is also very, very good. So Cryptek action, select a point in the kill zone visible to this operative. Treat the point as an intended target. The token will be placed flat upon, e.g. the floor of a kill zone or a vantage point. Place one of your Despair tokens on that point. Each time enemy operative will perform mission action or pick up within circle of the token, one additional AP must be subtracted for that enemy operative to perform the action. In addition, when determining control of the objective marker, the token is within circle of, treat enemy objective operatives total APL as being one less. This is not a modifier. We know from Legionaries that sort of thing is really good. So I'm taking Nightmare Shroud, I'm taking Harbinger of Despair. I'm going to get him into the middle of the table because odds are, we'll talk about this later, odds are I might want central control, I might want a faction tack up that makes me want to be in the centre of the thing, and he's just going to be really, he's going to have his Aura Nightmare Shroud on to make being in the centre kind of really disagreeable for the opponent, and he's going to lob down his Harbinger of Despair tokens as well. That's all very, very cool. That's just very, very cool. And then the Technomancer, who I believe is kind of the default pick, both because he comes in the box and because he makes your rest of your team much better. The weapon's okay, it's decent. Yeah, 6 dice hitting on 4s, but remember, if you fire it through, I cannot stress this enough, fire it through the Apprentech. You don't have to put anything extra, you just have to be on the ball vis-a-vis where your Apprentech is stood. But if you can fire it through the Apprentech, you're getting those rerolls, which is really good. So once again, the Cryptek actions, Canoptic Repair is okay, but I think it's the one that you skip. You basically have a Cryptek action, you select one friendly operative visible to within blue, and that friendly operative regains 2d3 lost wounds, or d3 lost wounds if it was reanimated this turning point. I would suggest that if you take that, you consider having your Apprentech run around with it, but I can't desperately see the appeal of that one. The Nano Scarab Repair Swarm is a Cryptek action. Now this is amazing, right? The Nano Scarab Repair Swarm. Until the end of the turning point, friendly Hireotek circle operatives cannot be injured. Consider how many, when your operatives resurrect, they'll be resurrecting on a very small number of wounds. So they'll come back, they're not injured. Great. Also, it means that they regain an additional lost wound with living metal every time. So it's now D3 plus 1. Great. And if they're reanimated, they come up with an additional wound as well. Really, really good. Really good. Really good. Really good. Really just shores up some of the weaknesses in your core resurrection mechanic. Rites of Reanimation. So this gives you the first one that we've looked at, the first source of reanimation. So you turn it on for 1 AP, and when you've turned it on, then you have an aura around you. Anybody dies within red of you, they can shoot the first person who dies within red of you. No, hang on. When another friendly Hireotek circle operative will be incapacitated for the first time during this battle, if it's visible to him within red of the operative can use the ability. If it does so, that friendly Hireotek circle operative attempts reanimation once in this turning point. Yeah, so once per turning point. If somebody dies and they haven't died before, and they're within red of your guy, then you can put your token down and reanimate them. It's worth saying this guy's on a 50mm base. It's massive, so that range of that aura is pretty massive as well. Now, what's going to make him tricky to use is 2 things. First of all, you're going to really want to activate him first every turn and use his Repair Swarm and turn on his aura, and then to protect the rest of your dudes, right? But then maybe you wanted to activate someone else because you've got a Mexican standoff style situation, so common in Kill Team, so you kind of struggle. Also, if you're activating him first, if you do both of those AP actions, chances are your Despotech or your Apprentech might not be in position for you to then use your 3rd AP to do command or to shoot via your conduit. Because what I imagine with this Technomancer is you're going to keep him near the back of your team. He doesn't need a line of sight for either of these 2 abilities that he's going to have. And he's going to be then occasionally, when he can, shooting through the Apprentech and or firing Overwatch via the Despotech. Now you can use Leech Power, that's 1 CP, it's one of your ploys, I've put it down here, which lets you steal an action point from a friendly model within 2 circle, which is great, although it does require a CP. But that would let you do your 2 crypt deck actions and shoot and do command or move or whatever else you wanted to do. Right, we're going to change up the order and go straight to the Apprentice, because I want to explain how the Apprentice works. So the Apprentice is move 3 circle, 2 APL, GA1, def 3, 3 up save, 10 wounds. He has a gun which is fine, 4s, 4s, 3, 4, AP1. If he shoots his gun, he can shoot it through the crypt deck. If he does, again, you get the thing where you can re-roll any or all of your attack dice results of 1 result, e.g. results of 2. So if you're going to shoot him, and you can shoot him through the crypt deck, it's better. Frankly, I don't think he's shooting that often. I think what you're more likely going to be doing is Apprentice assistance, so he can do one of your crypt deck's 2 actions, is what that effectively says, right? Perform a free crypt deck action with this operative that a friendly crypt deck operative from your kill team has gained, but has not performed during this turning point. See your crypt deck's operative's data card. That crypt deck action cannot be performed by friendly operatives again during this turning point. That operative cannot perform this action while within engagement range of an operative. So if you've got him running forwards, if you're doing something else with him, you can do one of these to take the AP strain off the Technomancer, if that's what you want to do. You could put your right to reanimation. It would then be on the Apprentice, so it'd be in a different location. Maybe that's useful to you. If you have one of the other crypt, you could turn him into a pseudo medic with Canoptic Repair. If you have one of the other crypt decks, you can go up and drop down your Harbinger of Despair token with your Apprentice as well. It's a really useful option for the Apprentice. So I like him. His gun's a bit weak. It's okay. It's AP1, 3, 4, but it's not really the point of him. All right. The Accelerator's the first of our 2 drones. So let's look at the drones. Defensive 2. Let me point that out. 5 up save, 5 wounds. Some terrible attacks. It has Scuttler, so basically we're used to this sort of thing. It has Super Conceal, so it's always treated as having a conceal if it's on conceal, regardless of any other rules, e.g. Vantage Point. You can fall back for 1 less action point to a minimum of 0, and you cannot have equipment, but you could do mission actions, which is useful. A good source of doors to be opened into the dark, for example. And this guy's comms, he can pay 1 AP to give an AP to a Deathmark or an Immortal. So it's worth saying that your Apprentice is not a Deathmark or Immortal, and neither are your Crypt decks, but your Despotech is, as well as your standard troops. So he's a comms, but it doesn't work on your leader or one of your specialists. Or himself, or the other Accelerator drone, it's worth saying. And he has Fly, which is nice. The Reanimator, exactly the same basic profile. Instead of being a comms, he has Reanimation Beam. He has the same rule, basically, as the Technomancer. So he is your second of the 3 sources of reanimation. The nice thing about this is that he does not have to spend AP to turn on his reanimation aura. It's always on. So you can use him if you want. You could use him. You could spend a CP to pull one of his APL and give it to the Crypt deck. You can use him to fly around, open doors, do mission actions, that kind of thing. And he's got the aura, and anybody around him that dies can come back with that aura. Right, the Immortal. Now, here's where we get onto some real meat. So, movement 2 circle. Right, there's a way around that. For a CP, you can give him 3 circle of movement, but he is movement 2 circle base, 2 APL, GA1, def 3, 3 up save, 10 wounds. Really good guns. The Ghost Blaster, 4 dice hitting on 3s, 4, 5, AP1. The Tesla Carbine, 5 dice hitting on 3s, 3, 3, splash 1. Right, let me try and tell you when you should use what gun. Both of the weapons are great. It's knowing which one to take. So I would take Tesla in the dark against any team. So any game, if you're playing into the dark, take Tesla. Tesla in the dark gains 5 up, lethal 5 up, right? So you're going to get more crits, which is going to mean that your damage 3, your crit damage 3 is harder to avoid, needing a 6, and it means that your splash 1, like, even against elite teams, it's still doing a mortal wound to the initial target of the shot, so it's still doing that initial extra mortal wound. So model it like mortal wounds 1. So you always want to take, I think, Tesla carbines when you're in the dark. Now, in the open world, on the face of it, the Ghost Blaster is much better at killing at meaningful wounds levels. For example, you're much more likely to one-shot a 7-wound model with a Ghost Blaster than with a Tesla carbine. However, odds are it's still going to take 2 shots. Right? And at that point, a lot of the time, the Tesla carbine is still the better choice against 10 model or more teams because of the splash. Especially if you go on to give them the Arc Shock projector here, which increases the range of the splash effectively to blue rather than white. So I will be taking Tesla in the dark. I will be taking Tesla on the open board for teams of 10 models or more. I would also be taking Tesla against Harlequins or anything else that slipped my mind that has a lot of invulnerable saves, because the Ghost Blaster has AP1. If it loses that AP1, again, the math shifts and the Tesla becomes the better pick. So actually, I think the only time that you really want Ghost Blaster is when you're in the open world and you're facing off against an elite team that isn't Harlequin Troop. So you're facing off against, you know, other Necrons, Space Marines of various kinds. You know, you want to take the Ghost Blaster in that case. Now, when the game's actually played, I find that the Ghost Blaster is always better in the open world, because I'd rather have that than the chip damage on the other models from the Tesla. I think that's one of those things where you have to play it and see which feels better to you. But my pick actually is that the default is probably the Tesla. Hyperphase Blade is another equipment option that you have, which will get your close combat attacks lethal 5-up, which is, it's fine. Your close combat isn't very good. Giving it lethal 5-up makes it better. When we get to the equipment, you'll see the equipment for the Necrons is really poor. So therefore, you may end up buying these anyway, basically. Quickly, the Bespoke. The Bespoke is basically an Immortal with a couple of extra rules. So remember, right the way back when we looked at the Cryptex, this command rule has special interplay with the Bespoke. So you can spend 1 AP from your Cryptek to allow your Bespoke, or anyone within red of him, or anyone indeed within red of your Cryptek, to do a fight, an Overwatch, a pickup, etc. So that's the first thing he's for. The second thing, he has this unique action himself, 1 AP, where you can select a friendly Deathmark or Immortal operative visible within red. Again, he can select himself, and effectively what he gets to do is use a command reroll in a shooting attack, or a defense against shooting attack, or fighting in combat. He gets to use a command reroll for free, which is quite nice. So he can demand himself. I demanded that I shoot that guy really well. Okay, I've demanded that to myself. Yeah. Don't really know why, but that's what that is. If you want to go really deep with this team, then consider picking up a Royal Warden model miniature from from any of the 40k starter sets, even the really cheap one. You can get one on eBay for about £4. He is the spitting image of the Bespoke, and he's armed with a Ghost Blaster, which is why I said at the start to make your one from the box that you buy armed with a Tesla carbine, because exactly the same discourse I said about when you want Ghost Blasters and when you want Tesla carbine, they're both useful to roster, and just think of this guy in most ways as another Immortal on your team. All right. Deathmark. The Deathmark's so disappointing to me in so many ways. Like, this was trailed as the Deathmark team, right, with all the pictures with loads of Deathmarks in, and they sculpted loads of really cool heads for the Deathmark. He kind of sucks. You take one, and I'll explain why, but it's not for a cool reason. So, move 2 APL, GA1, 3-3-10. He has the Synaptic Disintegrator, 4 dice, hitting on 2s, 4-4, AP1, heavy mortal wounds, but only 1. It's just not a good gun. It's not a good gun. You're going to struggle to do much more with it than with a Gorsa Mortal, and you've got that heavy to work around. But you take 1. Why do you take 1? Because you've got this ploy, dimensional translocation, 1 CP. Use the tactical ploy in the setup operative step. When you would set up your operatives, select 1 friendly Deathmark operative to be set up in the hyperspace dimension instead. In the firefight phase of the first turning point, the operative is considered to be within the kill zone for activation purposes and must be activated as normal. When it is, set it up with an order of your choice anywhere in the kill zone, more than red from the enemy drop zone and enemy operatives. The operative is treated and perform the normal move action and continue its activation as normal. You can only use the tactical deploy once. So he has forward deploy, which is good, but it's annoying, but you want to take it, but it's not cool. You can forward deploy him, and then you've used one yet. You've got 1 AP, and you've moved, so you can never forward deploy him and then shoot because his gun is heavy and he doesn't have any way of buying that off or getting around it. So you forward deploy onto an objective, and maybe you get a nice VP swing. There's often in missions there's an objective that nobody's getting on the first turn. You put him on the objective. You've got a second AP to do a mission action if that's what you want to do with him, and you may get a big VP swing, and that VP swing may win you the game. Right, so you're always taking a Deathmark. Well, maybe not always. If you're playing that into the dark mission with no objectives, then maybe you're not taking a Deathmark. But in general terms, I think you're taking the Deathmark just to ninja, especially if it's one where you can put him down on something that's really near your opponent, and you put him down, and then you immediately, like, action on the objective, and then you get killed for your hubris. But maybe you don't care because maybe the swing has been big enough from activating that one, stealing it off your opponent and putting it on yourself. Maybe the swing's been big enough to justify your shenanigans. If you don't fancy doing that, I guess what they want you to do is to infiltrate him onto a nice vantage point and then line up a sniper shot the next turn. But honestly, his little Deathmark gun is just not good enough to be worthy of that. You can try and buff it with some phase oculars, so he has some equipment he can buy. 2 EP, gives you an action for 1 AP, which is fine, because if you're standing still on a thing, and you shoot, and then you've got an AP left, so you can do phase oculars before you shoot, and it just means that when you roll, you select the enemy operative, so the guy you're about to shoot, until the end of the turning point. Each time this operative makes a shooting attack with a synaptic disintegrator against that enemy operative, at the end of the roll attack dice step of that shooting attack, if you didn't retain a critical, you can change one of your retained successful normal hits to a critical hit. Hooray! For 2 equipment points and an AP, you can guarantee a 6 if you don't roll 1, but then you'll do all that and then you roll a 6 anyway, and it will have been pointless. Like, it's just not fun. So, which is a shame because Deathmarks are really cool. You've also got Dimensional Concealment for 1 CP, so you can change your order, but you can only use this strategic deploy once. Yeah. Useful to know that you've got it. But they're just not. They're not what I'd want. They're powerful and good because they got forward deploy. So you take one to have forward deploy, but you're never going to take more than one. You're just taking Immortal. Taking Immortal. Immortals are great. Equipment. The equipment's really bad. So I mean, I like this team, but this slide and this slide are the 2 frustrating slides. Phase Oculus we just talked about. Hyperphase Blade we've talked about. It's not very good, but you probably take them anyway because nothing else is any good. Tesla Weave 2 EP. Each time an enemy operative finishes a charge action within engagement range of this operative, roll 3d6. For each result of 5, the enemy operative suffers 1 mortal wound. I'd rather have Hyperphase Blades. Like, neither of them are good, and both of them help me in combat, which is not where I want to be. So I'd rather have Hyperphase Blades. Arc Shock Projectors we've talked about. Definitely take them. If you're taking Tesla, take these. Use it to spend your credits on your EP. So take them. They're good. Phase Shifter, I guess we'll take it because the Crypt Deck's really good, and giving the Crypt Deck a 4 vulnerable save is really good. Devour Nano Scarabs, it's a grenade, it's 3 EP, attacks 4, BS3, 3-4 damage, no special rules. If you're one of these people that loves frag grenades, then yeah, there's your frag grenade. I'm not a frag grenade enjoyer, so I don't know that I'd want to take this. I briefly thought it might be good on the Deathmark because you could infiltrate him in and then you can't shoot your gun, so then you'd have another thing that you could shoot, but it's range red and you can't infiltrate in within red of an enemy to throw you a grenade, so it's not going to work. And then finally, we've got the Quantum Reanimates. The operative gains the following ability for the battle. While a friendly Hireotek circle operative is within blue of this operative, each time that operative would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll a d6. On a 4-up, that wound has not lost its hurricane insurance. If you're going to be dealt a mortal wound, you can have a 50% chance of ignoring the mortal wound. Okay. For 3 equipment points. So realistically, what am I taking? I am taking a phase shifter, 7 points left. If I've got Teslas, I've got 4 of them, so I'm going to spend 4 of my points on arc shot projectors. 3 points left. Maybe I'll buy a hyperphase blade and just have a point that I don't need. Or maybe I'll buy some phase oculars and just have a point that I don't need. If I'm not taking Teslas, I'll take the phase shifter. And then I'll take 3 hyperphase blades, please. I guess. Yep. I'm trying to remember which one of my Immortals doesn't have a hyperphase blade bayonet, which is slightly annoying, but there you go. Ploys. The ploys are really good. So, upbeat now. We've got past the annoying bit. I really like the ploys. So, Relentless Onslaught. 1 CP. Until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Hireotek circle operative makes a shooting attack against a target within red of it in the roll attack dice step of that shooting attack, you can re-roll one of your attack dice. It has no effect on shooting attacks made using the Magnification Conduit ability. Really good. But it's a CP hungry team, so you're probably not going to have the CP for it. But free re-rolls that are team-wide, especially on Into the Dark, where you go, right, yeah, it's turn 2, everything's going to be within red, that's fine, let's go. Really good. Irretractable March, 1 CP, your Immortals and Deathmarks can move 3 circle. Fine, good, yes, agreed. That might end up being attacks where you want to spend 1 CP to do it every single time. Right? Which is kind of annoying, but it's fine. Undying Androids, until the end of the turning point, each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Hireotek circle operative that's not in cover in the roll defense dice step of the shooting attack. Before rolling your defense dice, you can retain 1 successful normal save without rolling it. Makes you tanky as frick. Maybe you want to spy that. I can't decide. Like, maybe you just want to spam that every turn. And Intractable March. But you can't do that because you don't have that many command points. Because you're going to start the game, you're going to do Dimensional Translocation that we've already talked about, right? So that's 1 CP gone. You've got 2 left. If in turn 1 you're doing Intractable March, you've got 1 left, and you've got 1 left and 1 per turn. So then you can't do Undying Androids and Intractable March every turn. Relentless Onslaught isn't going to get a look in, and you haven't got anything left in your pocket for all of these that you're also going to want to do stuff with. So it's a CP hungry team, but it's good. It's a good ability. Dimensional Concealment, we've talked about, is the one that lets the Deathmark flip its order. You're never going to use it, I don't think, just because of how annoying it is, how pointless Deathmarks are, and how much you want to use all the other ploys all the time forever. Dimensional Translocation, yeah, if you're taking a Deathmark, you're taking him to use his ability and to steal an objective, I'm pretty certain, so therefore you're going to do that. Leech Power, we have mentioned it. You use it when a friendly Cryptek operative is activated. Select 1 friendly Hireotek circle operative within 2 circle, and you can steal 1 of its APL, basically. Yeah, it costs you a CP. Depending on what you're doing with your Cryptek, depending on your tactic, you might find that particularly useful. Then again, I suppose you might not, because you run out of CP. Cortical Subjugation, again, it's not on the thing, but it's 1 CP, and you use it when a friendly Cryptek operative is selected to target a shooting attack. You select 1 friendly Hireotek circle operative visible to and within circle of that operative, and you can resolve the shooting attack against that operative instead. So it gives you like a defense drone. like, pretty cool if you've got the spare CP and it comes up and you want to use it. And finally, you've got commence reanimation, which is your third and final source of reanimation. So once per turn for a CP, you can just say, yeah, he's going to reanimate and replace him with a token, even though he's not in range of the Reanimator or of the Technomancer. Assuming you've taken a Technomancer, that's your third option for reanimation. So only those three sources. Right, one requires CP and a really CP hungry team. One is an option that's locking you out of loads of other really cool options, and one is on your Reanimator, who you will just have to try and keep alive. Tac Ops, really good. I really like Tac Ops. Unyielding Ancients. At the end of the battle, if 3 or more friendly Hireotek circle operatives, excluding the plasma sites, are within red of the centre, and or your opponent's drop zone, you score a VP, and if one of them is your Cryptic or Apprentic, you score a second VP. I think that's pretty good. Stacks really well with central control, because you have the security deck, you want to take central control, why not? And if you can't get within red of the centre, getting within red of your opponent's DZ is very doable. On a lot of maps, that's basically half the table. So, good. Yes, you do need to get 3 of your guys alive in there, but staying alive is kind of your gimmick. Unearth Artifice. Reveal this tack up in the target reveal step at the first turning point. Place one of your Artifice tokens anywhere in the kill zone that's more than red from your drop zone and not on a terrain feature. The token is earthed at the end of any turning point before the 4th. If you control your Unearthed Artifice token, you score 1 VP. At the end of the battle, if you control your Unearthed Artifice token, you score 1 VP. You need to, at some point, spend 2 AP to unearth your Artifice token. 2 AP is kind of oppressive, but, you know, you've got, like, your Reanimation drone. In its first turn, it could move up. In its second turn, it could be on it, and it could use both of its AP to unearth Artifice and still be usefully, happily providing its aura. A thought. You know, especially as you can place it so you can get it behind some light cover, so you can get your concealed little droney boy there. You know, and the drone can hold. There's no reason the drone can't hold objectives. They're not totally insignificant. So, worthy of study is probably the hardest, but I think I'd probably still put it in the security deck. To be fair, I wouldn't want to play it, but I think it's better than some of the other stuff in the deck. The interesting thing here is that you can reveal it in the target reveal step of the first or second turning point. You select 2 of your opponent's operatives, and then your opponent selects 1, and then if that operative is incapacitated before it's removed from the kill zone, you place a study token near the centre of its base. At the end of any turning point, if a friendly operative controls your study token, and a friendly Cryptek or Apprentek is in red of at least one of those operatives, you score a VP, and if you do it again, you get another VP. So the nice-ish thing here is that you can take it and wait till the start of turn 2, and give if your opponents move forwards 2 guys that you're quite close to, you can give them a choice between those 2 guys. You can kind of force the choice. Your opponent might not be obliging though, and might not overextend, and might not give you any easy targets at the start of turn 2, and then you're kind of stuck with a pretty difficult tac op. So it's the weakest of the 3, but generally, and this is the first team in a long time, positive about the tac ops, so that's good. Final thoughts: it's a complex team with a lot of choice. You know, you've got to work out your Ghost Blasters versus your Teslas, which isn't straightforward. You've got to work out which Cryptek you're taking, and then you've got to work out which Cryptek abilities you're taking when you've chosen Cryptek. I definitely think there's a default path with the Technomancer. I want to play some games with the Technomancer, and then I crucially want to play some games without the Technomancer and get a feel for how mandatory he actually is. Because you don't want to ignore your resurrection ability. It's a big part of the team. You want to synergize with it and boost it up and use it. On the other hand, those other Crypteks bring powerful stuff to the table which you might want to use. It's a real shame about Deathmarks. They look so cool. They got 3 new heads. You're never going to run 3. So, but you're going to use them to grab objectives. You know, you're going to use one to grab an objective early in the game. That's cool, I suppose. Share your thoughts below. If I've got something really wrong, let me know. If you've got better ideas, better tactics. If you're also just really hyped for the team, let me know. Yeah, I'm going to try and do Kazakin tomorrow, you know, although it's 11:30 at night, because this evening after work was basically just taken up by trying to make my daughter enjoy life, because she likes to cry because she's less than a month old. But this is now the time I've got to make the video. So, Kazakin tomorrow, if you're hyped for that, and you haven't subscribed, give us a subscribe. We're like 90 subscribers away from 1,000 subs, which would be really cool place to be to get to 1,000 subs. So if we can get like 90 more subscribers, if you've got friends that love Kill Team or just were willing to subscribe to a random guy on YouTube to make him happy, please do let them know about the channel as well. Alright guys, have a great evening, morning, whatever it is you're doing, and cheerio.